Hello, I got my GIA hoodie. Groiper Intelligence Agency. I was pretty happy when those came in. I got my GIA hoodie. I'd show you the back, but my cat's on my lap, so I can't move right now. But it's got a nice logo on the back. I also got the Wang Half hoodie. I was very happy to get it. White ass niggas going hard as fuck. Very happy about it. Very happy about it. I had to get them. I just really wanted them. And when they showed up, I was confused. I was wondering, why is this box so light? Because I ordered books as well. And then I opened it and it was the hoodies. And I was just, I just felt great. Felt great to get my hoodies. The logos are a bit small though. I got the double XLs. I'm not really a fat ass, but excuse the expression if you're overweight, but I'm not overweight, but I wanted the double XL so that I could have big hoodies, but they didn't scale the logos with the size of the hoodie. So it's like the logo that could fit on like a medium is on the double X, and it kind of doesn't really scale as great as you would hope it would, but I'm still happy with them, and I'm happy to support America First. Nick Fuentes, I'm happy to support him. But yeah, I want to talk about today. I had a battle with demons this morning. Again, this is serious, and I'll tell you about it. So, every morning I do prayer. I say the rosary every morning. And at the end of the rosary, there is a prayer to Saint Michael, the archangel. And it goes like this: Saint Michael, the archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. So that's a very powerful prayer. And I was praying that this morning at the end of the rosary, and it's like demons inside of me get enraged at that. And this is a weird thing to talk about, I understand that, but I kind of have to talk about it. Like, I just think it's important, and I also think it's important for me to remain humble and not be prideful and pretend like, oh, I'm okay, this stuff doesn't happen to me. It's like, if something does happen to you, acceptance is really important. You have to be able to accept it and ask for help. In this case, I'm asking for divine help. I'm actually asking for Saint Michael to intercede on my behalf to God and to help me and fight these demons. But I'll say a little bit more. So what happens is I repeat the prayer, but my voice will change, and it's a very strange thing. It's like my voice changes into almost like a growl. Or it was actually changing into different things, because I think it's multiple demons that have taken hold of me. And so I was, I don't know how to describe it perfectly, but I'll try my best. I was sort of like targeting, in a sense, these different demons just through prayer, repetition of the prayer, and trying to both call on Saint Michael, and then also thinking about almost like the feeling or the time in my life when it's felt like I've been attacked by demons before. And this goes way back, like to when I was a kid, actually. And so I actually targeted, or I don't know how to describe it perfectly, but like tried to do battle with that demon from when I was a kid that used to repeat to me. It sounded like another another voice was repeating to me, or like some voice or something was saying to me, "You're evil," on repeat. And I know this overlaps with, you could say, schizophrenia or hearing voices or something like that. But I don't know what else to say. Like, that is what happened, and it was really distressing when I was a kid. Um, when I heard that on repeat, because I just wanted to go away, you know, like and eventually it did go away, but it's like really distressing. And the the demon, though, when I'm repeating the prayer, and then I'm recalling that memory, and also that feeling from when I was a kid. I was like 5 or 6 or something. The demon becomes enraged. Like it's like rage in my body or something like that. And like I said, my voice changes. It's like a growl, and I mean it's kind of strange because I just I basically I remain in faith. Like that's how I deal with it, because um, it's like I know at this point, I know that God is greater. Like that's what faith is. Like a lot of people struggle with faith or don't understand what faith is, but it's like a deep felt knowing or feeling, or some people say noetic, but that's what faith is, right? It's like a leap. Like you have to take it in order to have faith, and it necessitates overcoming doubt, right? So yeah, it's a very important thing, actually. It's like possibly it is the most important thing, I think, in anybody's life, is faith. But yeah, each person gets there, um, I guess, on their own time or by their own decision, necessarily, because it's a free will choice. Um, but I also I also targeted a different demon as well, which is like the lust demon, that has been attacking me or been with me for like my entire life, seriously. And I'm not proud of that at all. I'm actually very ashamed of it. But I think that's kind of how the demon works, really, is through shame. Like these things, they work through shame. Shame is a very powerful emotion, super powerful. Why do you think people are doing a lot of the stuff they're doing? A lot of it is not through, love or hard work or whatever. A lot of people are doing things through shame. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but that is kind of what's going on with a lot of people. But for me especially, it's hard to even just talk about it because I feel ashamed, right? But so I targeted the lust demon, and then it's hard to describe that one. Like my voice actually changed into like a high pitched voice, and I also targeted another demon, like the mocking demon. And this is something that's also kind of weird. It's like, to describe, it's like mockery is a very powerful thing as well, because nobody wants to be mocked. Nobody wants to be reputationally injured by doing something stupid and then being ostracized or cast out or shunned or whatever. That's kind of like what mockery is. And actually some people embrace being mocked, and it can get really messed up for those people. And I'm not trying to put them down, but some people, they become like the class clown or whatever, or the lol cow is the more modern term. I don't know how widespread that one is, but it's just somebody who's part of the group but is always made fun of and always mocked. So they essentially just embrace the mockery. But yeah, it's not a good place to be. And yeah, that one was also a strange voice. So yeah, I noticed the mocking one, the mocking demon, in a lot of people actually in Canada. I've noticed it in my mom. I've noticed it in my brother. I've even noticed it in the Prime Minister of the country, Mark Carney. And I know it sounds very strange, but I'll give some examples. My example for that is kind of like a smile. It's like that. It's like a micro expression is kind of how you can notice it. And some people, it's like anytime a serious topic is brought up, and this is where I noticed it within my family, anytime a serious topic is brought up, they cannot handle it, and they have to start giggling and laughing. It's really weird. I don't know if that's a demon or if that's just immaturity. It's kind of hard to really say. But certainly there's an overlap because, kids, they just mock a lot of stuff all the time. Teenagers, kids, and some people just never outgrow it. So you could say it's just immaturity and developmental stunting. But that sort of like, it's like a sly smile. And I don't watch a lot of the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, but I've seen it in him too. And it's just like, this is a deceptive person when they have sort of like a kind of like a weird grin, and then they just try and hide it, and then they say some talking point or line or whatever. Yeah, so anyway, after this prayer in the morning, I felt kind of a little bit tired. I'm not sure, but here's the interesting thing. So I did my cold plunge after, and I actually, as I was setting up the cold plunge, changing the water because it was really slimy, it doesn't last that long. It starts to get kind of gross and cloudy, and I have to change it. But as I was setting it up, I felt lighter. I felt more like I could feel my body in a sense as well. Like even when I was praying, like just before, I almost felt like near the end of the prayer, my body was more like connecting a bit. And also, I felt like the room was more proportional, and like my vision changed a little bit as well, and things weren't so distorted, and also my body felt more like it was mine again, and I could actually like see my arms in a different way. It was a strange experience, but yeah. And I guess one way I could put it for somebody who doesn't really know what I'm talking about is that you would understand what I'm talking about if you've ever tried psychedelics, which I'm not advocating for, actually. I've done them before, and I don't actually recommend them to people. They're really strong, and they can be too much for people and whatever. There's a whole lot to be said about them, but I actually don't recommend them anymore. Not that I really used to, but I tried them personally. I had a big interest, but my point with that is that it was almost like I was in a different state of consciousness afterward. Like I felt better, like everything kind of changed. Like when you're in a different state of consciousness, like altered consciousness, and the thing is, a lot of people don't even recognize what level of consciousness they're in, or that there are different levels of consciousness, but things, actually you perceive things differently. So that's my point with that. And And I felt kind of good, which is very uncommon for me. A feeling that I don't really remember feeling for quite a long time. Yeah. So I did the cold plunge. I wonder if I've felt it ever. Like, it's just hard for me to even remember at this point. But I probably did feel good in the past, yeah, anyway. But I did the cold plunge and that felt good as well. And then I read the Bible some more. I'm reading the book of Acts and I copied out verses from there. And I went to the university to try to evangelize the gospel. And I know it sounds kind of kooky crazy, but I'll talk a little bit more about that after, about the kooky crazy part and just how it sounds. But so I went to the university to try, and actually this time I went to a different university than the one that I went to before. And I didn't really feel great this time. And I was saying prayers like that. I'd have the strength and the courage to just to approach somebody to try to evangelize the gospel. And actually, I'm an alumnus at this university. You say alumni when it's more than one, but the singular is alumnus. So if you've been to a school, you're an alumnus. And it felt weird being back at my old university. And then I went to the library there, and I saw a lot of, I'll just say it, like evil Jew books when I was looking through the library. And what I mean by that is I was just looking at them, like the different titles and everything, and I was reading some of the Talmud, and it's like they have such a strong narrative against Christianity in so many of the books, and it's like I would describe it as a narrative of like you've probably heard it before, but like we are God's chosen people. Christianity is like this bad thing that happened, but we're coming back, and we don't like our position right now, but we're just dealing with it, and we're gonna retake power, and power is rightfully ours. That's kind of like the general narrative summed up. But like some of the titles, it was saying like Judaism in the matrix of Christianity, and like all of this stuff, because the thing is that they totally reject Christianity. People don't know this. I think a lot of people just don't understand this, but Jews totally reject Christianity, although they may be deceptive to try and make it seem like Christianity is like, there's many religions and everything. No, they do not like Christianity on a theological level, like in all the writings, and many of the most famous rabbis. But so they're not our friends. They hate us. That's my point. But my point is also, as Christians, we have to love our enemies. Love everybody, including your enemies. That's what Christ taught. Jews don't believe that. Jews believe in an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And they actually want to destroy Christianity. Like, people somehow don't understand this. I don't know. And it's actually kind of weird, because it's like, why don't older people know this? You grow up and there's all these people tell you to go to church, and they don't talk about this. They don't tell you anything. Like, why don't they teach you anything? But yeah, anyway, I just don't understand, but I kind of understand more now. But it's like it's a very historical thing, and there's a lot of propaganda. It's over time, it's slow, and we've been sold out by older generations. Like, this is a very important point, but people like Woodrow Wilson, the president of the U.S., when they passed the Federal Reserve Act, what was he thinking? Why would he do that? It screwed the country. It screwed people. It put like financial shackles on everybody. It enslaved people to a debt-based system, a debt-based money system, and that's a big deal. Like, the Great Depression of 1929 in the 30s, that was because of the Federal Reserve. It's because of the ability to create and to expand and contract the money supply. That's why there was a Great Depression. Like, people don't even know that. I don't know. People don't know. It's like people don't know anything. Like, what? I'm not trying to be mean, but my point is just that, like, it's tough when people don't know anything. Dude. Yeah, anyway. I'm not trying to be mean, but yeah. Okay, so but I was looking through this library collection, and there's a huge collection of what I would classify as evil books, which I believe should be burned, like witchcraft books, tons of different books on like just evil things in the religion and spirituality section. But yeah, I mean, in the past, like historically, and people might think, oh, burning books, that's so horrible. But in the past, like, there's been a lot of book burnings. And now that I know more of what I know, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, proliferation of propaganda is not really a good thing. You just create, it creates like destabilization and opposition within a society. And you may think like, oh, every idea is equal and we should just let them all debate and the good ones will come out on top. That's like, I really don't think it works like that, like people think. And I've gone to university, I've gone to all this, through all this schooling, and I've heard this, and I've watched tons of, well, quite a few debates and everything, but yeah, I don't know. It's like, do you really want to be debating the pillars of your society over and over and over again while things degrade? That's kind of what's happening currently. But anyways, okay, so, and it was funny, I checked the Talmud, and the one that I looked at that they have there, it's the censored and rewritten version. Because if you look online, you can find in Gittin 57a within the Talmud, the Bavli Talmud, which is the Babylonian Talmud, written in, I think that one was written, because there's two main ones, the Palestinian or Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian one. I think that one's written in like the 7th century. But anyways, there's a passage in there I wanted to, like, you know, reference check about Jesus is referenced, Jesus of Nazareth is referenced as burning in boiling excrement, but in this Talmud version they put the sinner or sinners of Israel. So they actually went back or reprinted or whatever and censored it, because in the past, like in the 1200s in Paris, people started reading the Talmud. Christians read it, and it was a Christian region at the time, and they burned all the Talmud. So since then, there's been a lot of recensoring and everything. But if you look online, I think at Sefaria or something like that, you can find other versions of the Talmud where it says Jesus the Nazarene. So anyway, I just wanted to double check. And then also, I couldn't even find Sanhedrin 43a. It only went up to 42. And I was wondering if that was because this version, they just cut it out. But again, Jesus is referenced in there as being killed after Passover, or before, during, around Passover, which lines up with the New Testament account of when he was crucified. And so it's talked about in the Talmud, but I don't know if they censored it or took that out. I'm not sure. I couldn't find it. Okay, and then I was looking through, and thanks be to God, I found the Christian. I found the Christian section, and I felt better. I felt better, and I looked at the books of the early church fathers, and I was reading. I forget which one I was reading. One of them, I forget the name. Yeah, but I was reading one of them, and one of the sermons. It was a good one. And I was looking through all this stuff, and a black guy and an Asian guy stopped me, and they were asking about my hat because it had the radio logo for the school radio station, because I actually used to have a radio show. And although I wasn't on air for very long, only like a couple episodes, and he was just asking me about it, and I was so taken aback, and I was just like trying to like get through the conversation and be kind of be nice, or not be nice, but be normal, I guess. But the thing is, I wasn't really feeling that good when I was like looking through all this stuff, right? And when I was in the university, I don't know, I just didn't feel that great. But they were nice guys, and he actually said his name, and it was like a religious name that a lot of black people have, like a religious name. And I'm not going to say the name just out of respect for him, but to conceal his identity. But I thought that was interesting. He had like this religious name. And by religious name, I don't just mean like, John or Mark or Matthew. Like a lot of white people have those names, but black people specifically, a lot of times they have names that are sort of different. Like just as an example, this wasn't his name. Sometimes they're named Blessing. It's really common in like Nigeria or places like that. But yeah, no, I just wish them both like a good evening, and I could have tried to evangelize to them, but I wasn't like in them. I was not, I was not able to at that time. I wasn't in the feel of it or something, or I was feeling too nervous, or I actually just didn't feel that good. And also, I was feeling kind of self-conscious because I feel like my eyes feel like they look weird or something. And I'm not really sure what that is, but I've seen this kind of look in other people's eyes before, and that's why I wonder if it spread to me. And I'm not really sure about that. That's just kind of a thought, but it's kind of like this weird-ish look in people's eyes. And I don't know, I've seen it before. Not really sure what it is. And then, oh yeah, I almost got sucked into reading this evil book about Molech, and I rebuke that in Jesus' name. But there was this book about Molech in like the Jewish section, because that's a god, lowercase g, god that Jewish people and other people, I guess, in the time period, but still to today, people sacrifice children to that, idol or god. And it was saying that it just means ruler or something like that. I'm not even sure, but I only read a little bit about it, and then I was like, I'm not getting sucked into that. I put it back. I couldn't evangelize today. I had a couple opportunities when I was walking around, it felt like, where it would have been almost like, perfect chance just to say, hi, my name is, what's your name? Can I talk to you about Jesus? But I kind of couldn't do it. I don't know. I wasn't really in the correct headspace, I guess you could say. And I suppose I had many more opportunities than that, but the thing when I say opportunities, I mean like when it kind of like feels like the right moment, if that makes any sense. But it was actually two women, and I haven't evangelized to a woman yet, which it'll be interesting when I try, because it's a very different dynamic when you're talking to a man versus a woman. Always. But yeah, I'd be interested to see how that goes. But with one, I'll just describe. So I was walking through you know how they have big rows of books, and then there's like a walkway in between, and there'll be like or big shelves of books on each side and a walkway through. And then so there was some woman walking toward me, and then I might have said something, but I just decided not to. And then I was walking through further, and there was somebody looking looking at a book as I walked past, and then it was another woman, and I kept walking, and I was basically ready to leave, but she came out behind me, and then the library is a little bit mazy, so I went to leave, and then I kind of went the wrong direction, and I turned the other way, and she was like right behind me, and then I just like went past, and then I looked back, and she was like looking back, and yeah, so I don't know, but I could have talked to either of them, but I just kept going. And yeah, I just couldn't do it today, but I will try again. And I think I might go in the morning tomorrow, because I went today during rush hour and kind of like later in the day, so I don't know if it was a great time. I don't know, I'll have to feel it out. And then also I kind of want to hold a sign, like I have a Jesus loves you sign, like that I wrote out in a marker. I kind of want to hold that at the overpass during rush hour, so I would maybe do that, do two different things. Go in person in the morning and try and talk to somebody, and then go hold the sign at the overpass. Maybe I'll do that. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of cars, and I kind of like doing that because I've done that now, I think 3 times. And I really like it when people honk the horn. I really appreciate it. And so I have something to say about this, though. I always think about what, bad thing someone might say, like, oh, he's Looney Tunes, oh, he's crazy, he's a nut, like, look at that Jesus freak. But then I think, there are those people, but there are also people who say good things. Like, someone might say, yes, that's what we need to see more of, Jesus loves you too. Like, people actually do kind of say stuff like that. They have that reaction sometimes when they're going past stuff, Sometimes people have a good or a bad reaction, but it's kind of a struggle, I think, and a balance to continue on. But I feel like it's worth it. I have faith that it's worth it, and I think someone has to do it. Our country is dying. White people are being erased. Christianity's attacked all the time. The country's being changed, into some kind of like multi-faith amalgam, or no faith, or agnosticism, or whatever it is. Agnosticism is just this I don't know kind of attitude. I don't have enough information, I don't know type of attitude. It's like a fence sitter. An atheist is like, I don't believe in God, right? Theism, that means, belief in God. And atheism, no belief in God. And that's kind of what the country is now. It's turning into, and I don't like it. I think a lot of people don't like what's going on. And I was in the post office. I was picking up my GIA hoodie, Groyper Intelligence Agency hoodie, and my Wang Half hoodie. White ass niggas going hard as fuck. And I was in the post office picking that up, and then I saw a pamphlet on the side Like in the post office, there's like an area where you can kind of like write your letters, and they have a pen there, but above it there's like these different pamphlets you could take. And I saw one, and I just like, I'm so sick of it. I saw one that said anti-racism and anti-discrimination at the post office. I was like, what is this? What is this country, man? What is this? That's like government funded. Like, that's Canada Post. That's a government funded, taxpayer funded. But I mean, it's been like that forever already with our institutions and our government, but we're getting killed. Like, our government hates us. And on the like the pamphlet, it said, you know, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, and it shows like a bunch of different people, like with that weird art style that all this woke stuff uses, and it was like one white person and in a sea of brown and black people. Dude, what is this? What is this country? Man. Ow, cat! He scratched he's clawing me. Maybe he doesn't like that I'm talking about this, I don't know. But, yeah, so, even at the universities, like, we're screwed, basically, and, you know, I've kind of known that for a long time. I don't like to say that because it sounds like black pill, but, and, you know, I'm white pill. I believe in Christ, right? I don't even really like the whole pills frame, but, it's more about, like, yeah, anyway, your worldview. But even at the universities, like, the demographics don't lie. It's all a lot of black and brown people, a lot of women. We're kind of screwed, because who does that go to be? That becomes the managerial class. That becomes the pencil pushers, bureaucrats, whatever. They go work in the government. And what do people advocate for? They advocate for their own side, for their own group, but they also advocate for whatever they're brainwashed toward or propagandized to advocate for and believe. And it's weird because it's like, why don't white people take their own side? Why don't white people do anything? Well, we're being attacked like crazy. That's kind of why. But you know, white people have suicidal empathy. Women are so woke, seriously, incredibly woke. But I think everybody kind of knows this at this point. Yeah. So yeah, white Christians are losing. I'm not sure. I don't like to say that, honestly. And where are white people going to go? Like, where's the white person homeland, right? Poland? Russia? Those are like the only places that are going to be really left. Poland is doing good because they're smart. They locked their borders to immigration. Russia's doing okay, I guess, but yeah. A lot of their men are dying in the war, though, which is not a good thing for both Russia and Ukraine. But yeah, that's why I go out to evangelize, right? Because yeah, I think it's important to spread Christian message. Not that Christianity is necessarily a white religion. It's kind of a weird topic actually to talk about, but Christianity, Jesus came for everyone. That's actually a huge point. Like, Jesus came for everybody. Gentiles, non-Jews. In the Bible, it talks a lot about how the Jews were just like astounded and hated Jesus because he came for everybody. He came for non-Jews as well. But that's the thing. Everybody's equal under God. So, yeah, it's hard to find an incentive then for white people to take their own side, right? Yeah. It is kind of a weird thing, though, because the major religions, they do have, ethnic lines to them, like racial lines to them. You can think of some obvious examples, right? Hinduism for Indians, and Sikhism. Now, I don't think that's written into the religion, but that is, de facto the way it is, that those lines are there for those people, and they're mostly racially, they go toward that religion. But other ones would be like Christianity, usually thought of as a white religion, or mostly white people are Christian. Judaism, that's a funny one because it is Jewish ethnically. You can't even become a Jew. Like, most Jews believe you have to be born in matrilineally, right? So they don't want converts. They don't actually solicit for converts to Judaism like other religions will solicit and evangelize, like I'm doing, to their own religion. Jews don't do that. Most people will say you're not a real Jew if you quote unquote convert to Judaism. Most Jews will believe that. But yeah. But yeah, Buddhism, that's a lot of, usually that's quite a lot of Asians, like Chinese, or, Japanese, or I think a lot of Korean as well, but it's not necessarily, a lot of white people go to that too. But anyways, there's actually a lot to be said about the influence. There's been influences on recruitment for some of these Eastern religions and everything. That was actually by the CIA, believe it or not, but that's true. Specifically some of this, like Hindu and stuff, it was kind of pushed and promoted to the Western world on purpose. But anyways, my point though is that, these other races of people, they take their own side. Black people take their own side. Brown people take their own side, whichever type of brown person they are, or whatever, racial or ethnic type they are that has brown skin, they take their own side. Whites have suicidal empathy. Yeah, especially white women. But what can you do, like, besides rant online or in your own echo chamber? Well, I'm going out, I'm trying to evangelize a Christian message. This is a Christian country. So I'm trying to have a clear message and go talk to people. I think that's important. And also I think that, nobody talks to anybody, like, really about substantial things. How often do people come up to you and actually come up to you, like, to evangelize the gospel? Like, probably never. Or maybe it's, you've seen like the Jehovah's Witness or whatever, but they just stand there, right? They wait for you to come up to them a lot of times. Sometimes people hand out pamphlets, but for the most part, there's not much evangelization. So I think it's an important thing to do. But yeah, I just have to be ready for evil and pray for protection from it, because yeah, I believe that there's a lot of evil out there. And the last thing I wanted to say was that I thought it was interesting to see, and this is a very unique example, but Clavicular, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but to see his mindset, like the way he talks. And I don't think he's like very smart or anything. I think when I first watched him, I thought he was kind of retarded, but he's right on certain things, but he's like hyper focused on those things. But his thing, and I like him, by the way, but his thing is like hyper individualism. But he's also just turned 20 years old. And it kind of reminds me of myself too, because his whole thing is like, he keeps saying like, well, everything's going to collapse anyway, just max out and do everything for me individually. And I thought it was kind of interesting because, he went out with, or he was with Nick Fuentes and Sneeko, and they were talking about this. And both Nick Fuentes and Sneeko, they were kind of like, yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. But he kept on repeat saying those things like, oh, well, for me it's fine. And, I can just do everything for me. And, it's all good, I'm all right, right? And he was kind of like pushing home that point about the individual, which really makes sense. And again, this is a very specific example of him. But I noticed that as interesting frame of mind. And obviously you might say it's very self-centered, narcissistic. I know about that. But it was just interesting to hear that, because some people really do have that type of thought process. And the thing with him too is he also said his testosterone is 2,500 nanograms per deciliter or something like that, but his T levels are incredibly high. The thing about testosterone is it makes you less susceptible to other people's feelings. So that kind of plays into it too. But yeah, and then also a lot of the different drugs that he's tried also feed into individualism and ego for the self. But I'm not trying to be too like overly analytical of him, but I just thought that was interesting to hear that individualist perspective, hyper individualist perspective. But it's kind of common among young people especially, right? But as you get older, like Sneeko and Nick Fuentes were saying, they're like, no, you kind of need the collective, you kind of need the group. And it is true, you actually do need a group, right? The thing is, and this is the whole balance where everything comes together, is like, well, who's in the group? And that's actually how people are being controlled, and everything is social dynamics and slow change and inputs to groups, really, to move the direction of the groups. And this is what it means about the Good Shepherd. Jesus is the Good Shepherd that guides the group well, and he cares about the sheep. All these other people, they don't care about the sheep. It's funny because all of these like big names and everything, they need people. Like everything needs people. Like the goyim, the masses. Goyim means cattle, right, to the Jews. But the masses, like all the people, you have so many people that spend a ton of time thinking about other people, as I'm doing right now. But it's about controlling people and influencing and everything and guiding and whatever. You you're putting a lot of stress on the masses, like by doing that all the time, right? But social cohesion and stabilization is really is taking these shocks, right? Taking these shocks to the system. And it's really tough, It ends up being really tough on people, because at a social level, things are not doing well. Like social cohesion-wise, cultural-wise, when you go out and people are smiling, that's cultural. Like when you go out and people are nice and hold the door, and conversation flows easily, and people go about their day and everything, that's cultural. Like when things are like a shit show and everyone's afraid and everyone seems on edge, and people are just trying to survive interactions, that's cultural as well. And that's currently what we're seeing. That's what it's like outside. And people react and they respond in different ways. Some people get louder, some people get quieter, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I also wanted to talk about how the Fed creates money. So basically nobody knows this. Some people may know this, that they make money out of thin air. That's true. But people do not know this. And so I copied it out, like just generally most people don't know this. And I copied it out. I watched the Money Masters, essential documentary. So important, such an important documentary on the money system. If you're interested in finance and banking, if you're interested in money, this is the most important documentary. And they talk about how does the Federal Reserve create money? How does the government, it's not actually the government, it's privately owned by Jews, banking cartel that creates money. People think it's the government, but it's actually not. But how do they do that? So I copied it out, and I'll read it out how. So first you have to understand what bonds are. So a bond is an IOU from the government. So it's a promise to pay. So you give somebody an IOU, you say, I owe you $50. Here you go. I'll give you this piece of paper. I will pay you $50 next week. It's an IOU. So that's the same thing as a bond. So people buy bonds to get a secure rate of interest at the term of the bond. The government repays the bond plus interest, and the bond is destroyed. So it's, okay, here, I owe you $50. I'll pay you back in a week. And you know what? I'll give you $55 when I pay you back. You'll get 10%. And you say, okay, that sounds great. Can I do that again? I say, sure, you know what? However many times you need it, I'll give you a bond. I'll give you an IOU. And then you think, okay, well, that sounds good. I have like quite a bit of money, but I'd like to grow it. So why don't I get a bunch of bonds, and then I can get 10% interest on that over the week. And yeah, that sounds good. So people buy bonds to get interest, and it's just an IOU. You get paid back at the end of the term, plus the interest, and then the bond is destroyed. Well, how does the Fed create money out of nothing? So it's a 4-step process. Step 1, the Federal Open Market Committee approves the purchase of U.S. bonds on the open market. Step 2, the bonds are purchased by the Fed from whoever is offering them for sale on the open market. Step 3, the Fed pays for the bonds with electronic credits to the seller's bank, which in turn credits the seller's bank account. The trick is that these credits are based on nothing. The Fed just creates them. Step 4, the banks use these deposits as reserves. They can loan out over 10 times the amount of their reserves to new borrowers, all at interest. So the first 2 steps are a little bit confusing, and I tried to look this up to figure out what is the Federal Open Market Committee. It's 12 or 13 different people, and they represent the Federal Reserve, and they represent the banks. And they're supposed to be appointed by the government, but it's very easy for the Federal Reserve to just get their own people to sit on the committee. And so they approve the purchase of U.S. bonds on the open market. And I was trying to figure out what that meant exactly. But the bonds are purchased by the Fed from whoever is offering them for sale on the open market. And this was weird because it looked like the U.S. Treasury Department sells the bonds. And I was trying to figure out, well, who's their bank account? Well, it's the Federal Reserve. Huh? So it's just kind of like they're all in on it type of thing. It's just different names, like a shell game or whatever you want to call that. I think that's called a shell game, right? But so basically the Federal Open Market Committee, who has their own people elected, gets their own people on the board, and they're supposed to be government elected, but it's just they lobby for it or they somehow get them on through influence. And then they say, okay, we're going to purchase a bunch of bonds on the open market. And then the bonds are purchased by the Fed from whoever's offering them for sale, which it seems like is the U.S. Treasury, which has its own bank as the Federal Reserve. I don't know, it just seemed weird because it was like they're just buying from themselves or something. But yeah, I guess they could be sold by other things like other banks or something, but it's all just kind of like connected and controlled when you trace it back, basically by these vested interests, which is like Jewish families, like the Rothschilds families, and other people who basically run the banks, own them. The banking cartel, they say, or they're called, but then the Fed pays for the bonds with electronic credits, which they just create out of nothing, and it goes to the seller's bank account. And then the banks, use these deposits as reserves because we have a fractional reserve banking system. So they only need to have a fraction of what they say. They only need to have a fraction in their reserve, in their actual bank, what the actual bank itself has. Only needs to be a fraction of what they can lend out to other people. They can lend out over 10 times what they actually have to new borrowers. So people want to borrow money for whatever they need it for, houses or something else, building things or whatever. Then they just loan out that money, which is like created out of nothing and then magnified to even more by 10 times, and then they charge interest on it. This is why banks are rich, right? But the thing is, and I was thinking about this, I was like, well, what is the value? Like, the value is actually the goods and the services, right? So the people who are doing the work, who are actually creating things or offering services to other people, that is the value. But we're so heavily tied to thinking that money has value, we don't really realize that it's kind of like a big trick that's being played, because people just want to make more money. But at like the highest level of like, well, what money is, they're just creating more money and then contracting it. And they do this, I'm not exactly sure why, but it can create depressions, like recessions and depressions. Those can be created. And it's for wealth transfer, basically, because people just suck money. They suck value. Like these people who own the banks and whatever, they're sucking value out of the people, right? They're sucking it as in the form of money out of the people, and then they use that basically to create more wealth. Like, it just never ends for them. And this is what people want, right? This is what they really want. They just want like endless growth wealth where it makes more money, your money makes money and whatever. But they buy real estate, and they buy essentially called assets like gold or some other things, like some stable companies, they buy stock in that. But yeah, they buy real estate and precious metals and other things like that. But yeah, they're just sucking a ton of... This is like the trick. This is how they suck money out of everybody, and why everybody's poor, right? They don't want people to have they don't want a middle class, right? They want a lot of poor and then very rich and super rich. So anyways, it's these 4 steps, and then in this way, a Fed purchase of, say, $1 million worth of bonds gets turned into over $10 million in bank accounts. The Fed, in effect, creates 10% of this totally new money, and the banks create the other 90%. To reduce the amount of money in the economy, the process is just reversed. The Fed sells bonds to the public, and the money flows out of the purchaser's local bank. Loans must be reduced by 10 times the amount of the sale. So a Fed sale of $1 million in bonds results in $10 million less money in the economy. So how does this benefit the bankers whose representatives huddled at Jekyll Island? First, it totally misdirected banking reform efforts from proper solutions. Second, it prevented a proper debt-free system of government finance like Lincoln's greenbacks from making a comeback. The bond-based system of government finance forced on Lincoln after he created greenbacks was now cast in stone. Third, it delegated to the bankers the right to create 90% of our money supply, based on only fractional reserves, which they then loan out at interest. Fourth,